There was a country called Czechoslovakia. It got broken into Czech Republic and Slovakia. The separation was mutual and the relations sweet as ever. But now one country has become the bone of contention between the two blood brothers. We will tell you all about it, but before that, if you're a fan of non-corporate funded free news and analysis, you have landed on the right YouTube channel. Okay, let us begin. The Washington Post has highlighted a significant escalation in tensions between the Czech and Slovak government, primarily attributed to the divergent stances on Ukraine. This discord marks an unprecedented rift in the relations of these nations, which have historically maintained close ties since their amicable separation from Czechoslovakia. The potential election of Russia-friendly Peter Pellegrini as Slovakia's next president could further exacerbate these tensions. Notably, this rift represents the first instance of an open rhetorical confrontation between the two countries following the Ukrainian conflict, undermining their traditionally strong bilateral relationship. The friction is particularly pronounced between Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico, who exhibits a pro-Russia stance, and the Czech Republic's Prime Minister Petr Fiala, a staunch supporter of Kiev. Fico's opposition to arms shipments to Ukraine, resistance to Kiev's NATO membership, and objections to sanctions against Russia starkly contrast with Fiala's position. Fiala, expressing displeasure, has consequently discontinued the practice of informal joint cabinet meetings, a testament to the deepening divide. In response, Fico accused the Czech government of endangering bilateral relations, attributing their stance to a purported inclination to support the ongoing conflict in Ukraine while advocating for peace from the Slovak side. He cautioned against jeopardizing the bond with their historic brothers, emphasizing that such decisions would not influence Slovakia's sovereign policies. In the midst of escalating tensions between the Czech Republic and Slovakia over their different approaches to the conflict in Ukraine, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala further intensified the rift by hosting Slovak opposition leader Michal Šimečka in Prague, signaling alignment in foreign policy perspectives divergent from Slovakia's current administration. Despite this, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico maintains his stance on an independent foreign policy, expressing skepticism towards the West's motives and strategies concerning Ukraine on social media, critiquing the effectiveness of attempts to economically, militarily, and politically weaken Russia. Since assuming office in September 2023, Fico has steered Slovakia on a course reminiscent of Hungary under Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has been vocal in his criticism of unwavering support for Ukraine and sanctions against Russia. Fico's criticism of French President Emmanuel Macron's suggestion of deploying European troops to Ukraine mirrors a broader European consensus against such measures. However, Slovakia distinguishes itself by proposing alternatives to what Fico describes as Macron's misguided proposals. Slovak Defense Minister Robert Kaliňák articulated concerns over the West's contemplation of sending NATO forces to Ukraine, highlighting the need to prioritize the well-being of Ukrainian refugees who have been offered sanctuary, employment, and a semblance of normalcy in the West. Kaliňák emphasized the importance of considering the demographic of refugees affected by Ukrainian mobilization laws, pointing out that the focus should not solely be on military intervention but also on humanitarian consequences. Slovak Defense Minister Robert Kaliňák emphasized the potential of Ukrainian men of draft age to significantly aid their country's military efforts, advocating for the return to combat roles as preferable alternative to deploying foreign soldiers to Ukraine. The political landscape in Slovakia is closely watched, with Peter Pellegrini, a figure aligned with Prime Minister Robert Fico's policies, was leading the presidential race but suffered a surprise loss in the first round. However, critics argue Pellegrini will ultimately emerge victorious. The outcome of the upcoming presidential elections on March 23 is seen as pivotal, with the role of the president, though largely symbolic, holds influence over legislative processes. Edward Heger, a former Prime Minister, highlighted the election's significance, framing it as a choice between aligning with Western standards or shifting towards the position of countries like Hungary or Belarus. Heger expressed concerns over Pellegrini's potential presidency, furthering Slovakia's tilt towards policies favored by the Kremlin, echoing fears within Czechia about Slovakia's trajectory. These developments have strained relations between Czechia and Slovakia, leading to Czechia's distancing itself from its neighbor. The cooperation between Czechia and the Slovak opposition against the pro-Russia sentiment in Slovakia reflects a strategic attempt to prevent the spread of Russophilia within the region. EU is obviously supporting the Czech Republic, specifically after Fico jackhammered its favorite office to pieces. This video explains about the duel between the EU and Fico.